Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now let's continue with our coverage of the public sector wage strike. Professor Bonke Dumisa joins me now to look at the impact of the strike on the country's already ailing economy. Professor, good morning and thank you very much for your time. It seems workers are unrelenting. They're out in their numbers this morning. They want what they believe is due to them. But the question is, at what cost to the economy? Because we know borders will be short-staffed, meaning stoppages or delays in the logistics chain. Now, if you had to contextualize that for us, how great an impact would the strike have on the economy?
If this was going to be a serious strike with all the public servants being involved in it, yes, it would cripple the economy. And I think that is what some of the public servants would like to see. But because this is just the Public Service Association, PSA employees only who are involved in this, I don't think it's going to be that much. Moreover, because the largest trade union within COSATU, SATU, has decided that it is going to accept that 3% government offer.
But we're consistently being told that they constitute 250,000 of state employees. So is that number not big enough to shake the economy? Should they continue and this becomes a protracted strike?
I don't think so. I think they are just flexing their muscle. And I must say, I understand where the public servants come from when they say they want to get salary increases, or which are at least higher than the cost of living. But the problem is that the fiscals just cannot afford it. The government is already operating at budget deficits, and it has been operating at that level for a long time. So which means whatever salary increase that can be given, it would mean government will have to borrow more money. And it is us, the taxpayers, who are going to pay for that. So the government is totally justified in making this decision. It's not that it is being difficult. They just do not have that money. You must remember that South African government is already paying billions of rands every year, not paying back the principal debt, but just paying interest payments on that 4.something trillion rand total government debt. So I hope that the public servants will look at the bigger picture, especially because this thing of rising cost of living is not just a South African phenomenon. In the USA, the inflation rate is over 8.8%, and we don't see the American workers doing this. In the UK, the cost of living, the inflation rate is over 9.9%. We don't see the UK servants doing this. In Turkey, the inflation rate is over 83%. We don't see Turkish workers doing this thing. We need to look at the big picture before we do certain things.
So for those that have wanted to assess this and say the power of organized labor is dwindling, would you say then it's incorrect, it's not dwindling, it's just the sign of the times, economic times, that it's hard across the globe? So it's not to say that labor is losing its power or influence?
I agree with you on that one. We must not look at this thing from that narrow point of view, that how much power does the labor have. We must look at how that's why when SATU decided to accept the government offer, it was because they pragmatically looked at the big picture. And we need to have all South Africans, not just public servants, looking at the big picture before they embark on any strike action. But by the same token, the employers must stop giving themselves excessive performance bonuses and whatever you call it to justify the millions they give themselves.
Which to a certain extent has incensed the workers. There's also the element of corruption, where you've got a lot of money that is leaving government, and workers here are saying you've been entrusted with the public purse, but somehow you allow millions to go elsewhere to individuals, and here we are as part of the public service, we're not getting what is due to us because of you. So what do we do with that aspect of them saying you've allowed a lot of money to leave or be misused in the public?
The government must be seen to be acting against that one. And that's why when some opposition parties raised the question about cabinet ministers getting so many freebies like free electricity and free water, when they started making a lot of noise about that one, we saw that the government acted on that one. We do need a very active citizen in South Africa to challenge both the workers and the government accountability, and everyone. We must stop being selfish in whatever role we play in life, because that is what destroys countries. That is what destroyed Zimbabwe, and we cannot afford to have South Africa as a failed state.
Mm-hmm. But here we are, you're saying that perhaps they need to look at this with a different set of eyes and see that government simply, it's not arrogance, but government simply doesn't have the funds. But here they are, they're protesting, but they're also saying, should government not respond in the manner they want them to? They will continue, and they actually are saying they have the funds to continue. They have funds set aside should this become a protracted strike. You still believe it would have no impact on the economy?
So long as it's one trade union, it will have no impact on the economy, because it does not help to blackmail the country because you're just looking only at your needs and you're not looking at... Because let me give you some statistics. We've got 1.2 million public servants in South Africa. That accounts for far less than 10% of the total South African population, and yet they account for 33% of all wages in South Africa, and they account for 14% of the GDP in South Africa, and they account for over 37% of the national use of the national revenue. Is that fair? This is by far one of the highest in the world. South African public servants are part of the most highly paid and secured and sheltered employment in the whole world. We need to look at many other people who are not employed and who work in conditions where they are paid far less than public servants. It's not that I'm not empathetic to their needs, but I believe that the greater South Africa has more needs than paying public servants a double-digit salary increase.